everybody watching on YouTube. Welcome to episode 33, or as my good friend Simon Michael HD calls, Turdy Tree. Episode 33 of the Horsemen podcast, and we are doing top 10 instrumental songs. But of course, I'm not alone. I'm joined right above my head, Artur Felipe Castanha. Next to him, on the right, Ricky Coleman.
Yellow.
And finally, over here, right next to me, the lovely Hannah Klein.
Hello.
So, yes, we are doing top 10 instrumental songs. It's a topic that I've been wanting to do on this show for quite a while. Finally got to happen, so we're here to talk about the vocalistless songs. No singing, just all out instrumentalization with guitars, the bass, the drums, what have you, and this is going to be quite a good episode. So I figured a good place to start would be about talking about which subgenre of metal do we think utilizes instrumental songs the best. I guess for me, I would start off by saying thrash metal, I would say probably, in my mind, does it the best, because there are so many great thrash metal instrumental songs. In fact, a good chunk of my list is mostly thrash metal instrumentals, because they really know how to shred and how to play really, really fast and precise, or really deliver something unique. I would also say, more people would probably say prog metal probably does it the best. I would say it depends on the band. Like, if it's just nothing but, like, jacking off on your instruments rather than writing an actual song, then I kind of get turned off. Dream Theater.
But I got power metal, too.
Power metal would be up there as well. Death metal, you could say, is one of the forerunners for that.
Symphonic metal.
Black metal, especially atmospheric black metal. In this kind of music genre, the vocals are at times utilized almost like an instrument, so they kind of blend in with the layers of sound, and it works without vocals. A lot of bands solely record instrumental songs or use vocals only as an effect. So it works pretty well, especially in atmospheric black metal.
Yeah, and I would say also for death metal, there are even bands out there that do mostly instrumental songs, but with a little bit of vocals. Prime example would be early Obituary, particularly Cause of Death era, like the song Dying off of Cause of Death. Mostly an instrumental song with a couple of lyrics thrown in towards the end of the song. So there's that for you as an example of like bands that have little vocals but are mostly doing instrumental stuff. So early Obituary would be a good example of that, but still there's singing in there, and we're talking about no singing at all. Maybe a spoken word part might be okay, but more often than not, it's all about no vocals, just all about what they're doing for the song on the instruments. So now that we kind of discussed what genres perhaps utilize instrumental songs the best, time to get into the list, kicking off with honorable mentions. I only have 2 honorable mentions, because I kind of put this list together last minute. Couple of odd choices here. First, I got Asphyx's Ode to a Nameless Grave off of The Rack. Originally was the song Mutilating Process back in like 89 that had lyrics and was a longer song, but when they decided to re-record it as Ode to the Nameless Grave, it was just the doom part, not the crazy thrash part from the original song. And I tried to go songs that are 3 minutes or more. This one's just a hair under 3 minutes, but I love playing this on the bass, this song, and it's a damn good instrumental. I also thought about putting prelude to the Unhonored Funeral off their self-titled, but there was a big chunk of it that had spoken word. But still. And that's another song I like playing on the bass, even though it's just 2 riffs. But still, I thought about it. But I went with Ode to a Nameless Grave. And then the last honorable mention, another oddball that I bet nobody thought of, Eon by Darkthrone, off of Soulside Journey, back when they were a death metal band. I went with that because it was the most wacky of the 2 instrumentals off of that album, and it was the closing track. And there's even live footage of them playing that song live in like '89, I think. So I went with Eon.
And when Darkthrone were still a 4-piece, not a 2-piece, not a 3-piece. They were still a 4-piece.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So those are my 2 honorable mentions. Hannah.
I have a few more. But before I start with my honorable mention list, I just wanted to mention that one of the criteria on which I selected my instrumental is that they are longer than 3 minutes. So that they are songs and not just some sort of interludes. So I think all of my selections are at least 3 minutes long, and some of them have spoken words because I simply didn't care about that. Well, let's start with my honorable mentions. I've got 9. My first one is Shoreless by Numenorian, of their amazing album Home. I mean, it's a depressive black metal band, and on their album Home, I mean, it's very depressing. And then you've got this little instrumental, sure, it's like 3.5 minutes long, and it's the only kind of touch of hope on this album, and it's such a catchy, little hopeful, sort of light moment in this album, and I simply love that one. Then the next 2 honorable mentions are by Levi, a great folk metal band out of Switzerland. They have released a lot of awesome instrumentals, but my 2 favorites are Memento and Izara. I mean, you can hear everything Levi is all about, the native instruments, the hurdy-gurdy, the tin whistles, and so on. 2 great songs. Then I've got Wattain's Lawless Darkness on here. The song, not the album.
Yeah, I was like...
It's kind of in the middle of this epic album, and it's a kick-ass instrumental, but still it's a nice pause from all the dark satanic black metal lyrics they have on all their other songs. I mean, it's flawlessly executed. I love that song, and it works very well without vocals. Then the next one, actually 2 songs again, an intro and an outro combo. Dimmu Borgir's Fear and Wonder and Perfection or Vanity, out of their puritanical euphoric Misanthropia album. What they did with the intro and the outro, it's only orchestra. I think one of the 2 songs also features guitars, and it's just...
Oh, no! Technical difficulties are back.
Wow.
Hello.
You were cut off. Bam.
Am I back again?
Yeah, just turn on your camera.
Oh,
It's just...
there it
There
is.
you go.
I don't know, the program just crashed. Well, what I wanted to say about the Dimmu Borgir choice, I mean, it's the intro and the outro, and it's just, it so perfectly fades into each other. I mean, it's in my opinion, a perfect way, or what they did on this album to start and finish an album. I simply love what they did here, and well, just listen for it yourself. Then my next choice, The Plains of Memory by Borknagar, out of their phenomenal album Erd. I mean, Earth marked the return of ICS Vortex on vocals, and there are a lot of songs where his vocals shine, but this track does perfectly well without ICS Vortex on vocals. It's simply epic. It's very touching instrumental. I mean, it's not weaker than any other song on this album. It keeps up very well with all the other songs on this album. Great instrumental. Then Karelia by Insomnium out of the latest record. Perfect album closer. Doesn't need the vocals. I mean, Insomnium's music or songs in general are awesome, even without the vocals. I think the instrumentation on all of their albums is great, and you can see that on Karelia. And then my last honorable mention is Soothsayer by Buckethead. I'm not the biggest fan of solo instrumentalists. I'm not a big fan of Joey Satriani and all those other guys, those shredders, but Buckethead oddly managed to touch my heart with Soothsayer. It's a 9-minute long epic, but it's not just mindless shredding. There's heart and soul in this song. I think it's great, as is Nottingham Lace, but I think Soothsayer is the better instrumental.
Alright, Ricky.
I have 5 honorable mentions. The first one is Metallica, To Live Is To Die.
Great song.
I wanted to put it a bit higher, but I know there's some other instrumental Metallica songs a bit higher on the list. It was hard to put it really low. Next up is a new one that I kind of love. This band is called Ashes of Life, and they're from Lisbon, Portugal. They have this death doom, progressive, borderline black metal vibe, and which I have the CD right here, the newest release. And my favorite song is in the middle of the album called Burn, which is a 6-minute progressive death doom masterpiece. Which I'm surprised Artur hasn't listened to them, being that they're from this neck of the woods. So Artur, this is a band you should check out. Next up, I got a bit of a classic one. The Frankenstein by Edgar Winter.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
I like my classic rock as much as I love my death, black, and new album. This is a classic song to listen to, especially when on the road. I mean, the intro, the dun 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 dun, iconic intro. I got 2 more. Rat Sad by Black Sabbath. Probably one of Billboard's finest moments in the Paranoid album. Bit of a break after you're listening to songs like War Pigs, Paranoid, Iron Man. It's kind of a bit of a break, kind of mellow. And last but not least, I got Voice of the Soul by Death. It was between that and another song which was higher on the list, but this is a close second to the other song I have on the list. One of Chuck's finest hours from the last album he ever did, and I had to put it right here. And I think Levi forgot about it.
No, it's my number 4. Oh, believe me, I thought about the other one that you probably have on your list, but yeah.
I have a death music on number 4 as well.
Ha! I will say this about Voice of the Soul real quick. If we ever get to do a top 10 saddest songs in metal, no doubt this would be on my list. Alright, Artur.
Oh boy. Dodged a bullet there so far. I have 8 honorable mentions. One of them just recently added by Hannah, Karelia by Insomnium. I adore that song. I have, this might be an oddball choice, but I have Dawkins' Mr. Scary. I mean, one of George Lynch's finest performances. It's full-on instrumental, and it's a shame that, yeah, Duncan and Lynch hate each other, but they were both good when they were together. I have a full album, and the reason why it's because it's really what he created for it. I have Yngwie Malmsteen's Concerto Suite in E minor. And just to clarify, this was a full year before Metallica released the S&M album. Malmsteen, love it or hate him, he made magic with the guitars. No question. No question. I have Arch Enemy's Enter the Machine, the intro to the Wages of Sin album as well. And this one I had to change for two other songs. I have also, and you are going to appreciate this, Levi, Death Angels, Ultraviolence.
I forgot about that one. Honorable mention.
You're going to appreciate this.
Call me.
I forgot about that one.
I have the first of several shredders on my list. Joe Satriani's The Extremist. I also have a Metallica song on my honorable mention, but it's not To Live or To Die For. I prefer the Call of Cthulhu. I prefer the Call of Cthulhu more than To Live is To Die For. And another one that I got to listen more thanks to Razor Fist. Thank you. Anthem's Absolute Figure, full-on instrumental sci-fi masterpiece.
Alrighty, now we move into the actual top 10, and I shall begin with my number 10. I hinted earlier, there's going to be a good chunk of thrash instrumentals on my list, and would have had more if I remembered Ultraviolence by Death Angel. But anyways, my number 10 is a underground, underrated band. I feel arguably the most underrated band in the history of metal, Coroner, and I went with Nosferatu off of Rest in Peace, their first album. It is such a neoclassical, shredding, thrash metal instrumental masterpiece. Tommy Barron, one of the most underrated guitarists in heavy metal history. He can shred as well as Eddie Van Halen, but within a thrash metal sense. And can write some damn good riffs, too. And this song was an example of his technicality, his classical roots, on an album that was quite technical for the time in 1987. So, my number 10, Nosferatu by Coroner. Also, Ron Royce shredding on the bass, kind of pioneering what death metal bassists would do a couple of years after with people like Steve Giorgio, Alex Webster, Roger Patterson, Sean Malone, a bunch of great bassists within death metal kind of took inspiration from Coroner and bands along those lines. So, Nosferatu by Coroner at number 10. Artur.
Oh boy, this is a bit of an oddball choice, but this is the first instrumental, full-on instrumental, which is also a cover at the same time. Wherever I May Roam, originally made by Metallica, but this is the full instrumental cover made by Nitro's guitarist Michael Angelo Batio.
Ooh.
I mean, this was the first second instrumental that I've ever heard. The second is my number 7. And I've heard Wherever I May Roam so many times that I lost count. But when Michelangelo Batio starts with the guitars and when you usually start to hear James sing when the road becomes my bride, you start to hear the guitar. I mean, Michelangelo not only does the rhythm section, he does the lead section, but he does the fucking vocals as well. He is probably one of the most underappreciated guitarists that ever existed, and still to this day is one of my favorite instrumentals. The Michelangelo Bathio version of Wherever I May Roam is my number 10.
Ricky.
My number 10, and I'm gonna go with a classic, another classic, Moby Dick by Led Zeppelin. Probably one of the best, in my opinion, John Bonham's best performance ever. It starts out really slow. You have the rhythm section by both John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page, and they let John Bonham shine for a long time. That a point that watching it live, it gives you this sense of enjoyment, up and down, high and low, and you just hear getting faster and faster and faster to the point I'm like, Jesus, John Bonham, slow it down. You're gonna break a finger, but no, he just keeps going. That's how much John Bonham was important to Led Zeppelin, which unfortunately he passed away in 1980, which ended Led Zeppelin. And in many interviews, both Jimmy Page and not John Bonham, Robert Plant have said they will never tour again without John Bonham, because John Bonham was one of the forces that bonded Led Zeppelin. And this song is a testament to that power he brought to the band.
Hannah.
For my number 10, I'm going to do the same I did with Dimmu Borgir. I'm going to choose an album opener and an album closer combination. And for that, I choose Panopticon with Bernheim Forest in Spring and Kentucky, both from their album Kentucky. I think it perfectly frames this album. Bernheim Forest in Spring is a great bluegrass country instrumental with it heavily features the banjo. It's just awesome what Austin Lund did on this song, and Kentucky is like the perfect closer after listening to this kind of hybrid black metal Americana monolith of an album. It perfectly sums up what Kentucky is all about, and but still provides a kind of moment of quietness after all this blasting black metal riffs and so on. I think the instrumentation on Kentucky in general is awesome, but especially shines on the instrumentals.
And now on to number 9. Hannah, you begin.
My number 9 used to be my favorite song of this band until they released their phenomenal album The Circle. It's Retreat to Hibernate by Heretoire, a German post-black metal band. And what I love about this instrumental is, like many Heretoire songs, it starts a little bit quiet with a very peaceful yet at times dissonant guitar riffs, and then it picks up a heaviness somewhere at the 2 minutes 30 mark. I mean, for a very long time, this used to be my favorite Heretoire song. Still think it's awesome. One of the best songs out of their first record. Can highly recommend it. Everything Heretoire about Heretoire always evokes this kind of feeling of despair, yet still with a hint of hope in the background, and this song perfectly achieves that.
My number 9 is a bit of a classic from the thrash metal era of the late 80s. And I could have picked quite a few from this band, Testament, but the one that I decided to go with, from the New Order, Musical Death, A Dirge, the closing track on the New Order. It is such a beautiful closing track. Alex Skolnick showcasing his guitar abilities and Eric Peterson laying down the background melody. And I can remember at times feeling like as if I'm in like a dark room sitting in despair when listening to this song because it's just so eerie sounding yet so beautiful. And it was a hell of a way to close out what was more or less a monolith of thrash, closing out with something very melodic like this. And again, Alex Skolnick showing why he's one of the best guitarists in the history of metal. So that's my number 9, Musical Death, A Dirge by Testament. Ricky.
My number 9 is Steve Vai, For the Love of God.
Good old Steve
I am not.
Vai.
I am not huge of a fan of Steve Vai,
I also have a Steve Vai on my list, but it's not that one.
but I remember listening. I was doing some. I think I watched Mojo video top 10 instrumentals, and was the number one, which I'm like, yeah, the most popular one, which I'm like, I wonder why. And then I listened to it. I'm like, this is probably the song that I would put if I was either to, I don't know, go down a hill, seeing my life before my eyes, or I don't know, something epic. Because this is an epic song to listen to. And Steve Vai, one of the most recognizable guitarists out there. I just love the song. Very melodic. What? Quite long. I think it's 6 minutes in length, around there. It it captivates you. So I had to put it number 9.
Artur.
Sorry about that. I also have a bit of a classical on my number 9. And I don't know if it's going to shock people or if it makes Levi and Ricky say honorable mentions. Racer X's Technical Difficulties. I've listened to this song from a very good source called Brutal Legend. They had this on the soundtrack, and I never thought that this would be a full-on instrumental track. And I never knew who Racer X was until I later discovered they're a prodigy of a guitarist named Paul Gilbert. And wow, starting off with the drums is then a crescendo, always raising up the scales. This shows why Paul Gilbert, as well, is one of the best guitarists out there. Underrated, yeah, but unlike Hannah, Hannah has a point. Some guitarists, they want just wank off the solos and then be done with it. With Racer X, you have a progression, you have a song, you have a structure, which is going to be a bit the theme for a lot of it. That's why it's my number 9. Technical Difficulties.
Not to mention, Scott Travis of Judas Priest was originally in Racer X as well. Well, Artur, while we're on you, why don't we start with you for...
Number 8. Number 8.
Yep. My number 8. Yep. Ricky and a bit spoiled it with the guitarist, but it's not For the Love of God, the For the Love of God song. I have Erotic Nightmares by Steve Vai as well. No need to introduce people to who Steve Vai is. But Steve Vai as well has a bit of a disposition also to create a lot of structures, especially with the sound effects on the whammy bar that he usually does. And with Erotic Nightmares, it is truly a bit of a combination between classical glam and a little bit of sound effects that Steve Vai is a bit usually known. Not unlike Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, who uses the guitar as the DJ turntable, but Steve Vai is simply amazing. I would say that if I had to make a triangle of the best solo guitarists of all time, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and Yngwie Malmsteen as well. Who would be on the pinnacle? I don't know. Probably Malmsteen because he has a bit of a diva attitude. But number 8, The Erotic Nightmares of Steve Vai.
I fucking hate donuts. I don't like donuts.
Oh,
Give me donuts.
all right, Hannah.
My number 8 is the longest song I have on my list and probably the most epic one. It's Mana by Equilibrium. I mean, it's only like 16, 17 minutes long, and it's the album closer of their phenomenal album Sagas. And the thing is, it actually had to be shortened by like 2 or 3 minutes in order to fit on the album. And the thing is, I want to listen to those 2 or 3 minutes they cut out of this song, but so far they have never released a full version of it. But still, even with those minutes missing, it's a phenomenal and epic song. The entire Sagas album is epic, phenomenal, great, and in my opinion, the best album Equilibrium have ever released. And Sagas is the perfect album ending of this album. It starts. I mean, it just hits you right in the face. It starts out epic, and I don't know how they do it, but it keeps getting more bigger and faster and more epic and so on. It's just insane. And I think they did a phenomenal job on this song. I wish they would play Sagas in its entirety. One can always dream. Fucking awesome song.
My number 8 is a song that when you hear the title and the band, some people may not know, but when they go and search it up, people who have followed this channel for a while will recognize it. I used to use this song as my old outro, and that is Inquisition Symphony by Sepultura off of Schizophrenia. It is 7 minutes of pure thrashing mayhem by Sepultura, and starts off with this like almost kind of classical guitar before it just goes full on thrash, and then when you get to around the 2-minute mark, it goes from like a more slower build up to just pure fast all the time from the Cavalera brothers, Andreas Kisser and Paulo Jr. They really show their capabilities on their instruments on this song, despite the production being quite raw. If it was better produced, like say on Beneath the Remains or more particularly Arise, more people would appreciate this song, I feel. But some of the, like I said, some of the longtime followers of this channel may not know the song, but when they go and check it out and they listen to it, they'll think, oh yeah, Levi used that as his outro on his channel for a long time, because it's that damn good of an instrumental track. So that's my number 8, Sepultura Inquisition Symphony. Ricky.
My number 8, Burp, was a bit of a later song to add to the list because I completely forgot about it. So like 2 days ago, I was watching a bit of a live live in '81 in Rainbow by a small band that you might have heard of called Iron Maiden. And I forgot about the song, so I had to put it Transylvania.
That's my number 7.
Oh, it's number 3.
My number 3, Transylvania.
Now, like I said, I completely forgot about it.
I'm going to kill everyone with my number 6. That's all I've got to say.
Oh no.
Oh no! Until I saw this live Iron Maiden in '81, the Rainbow, and I'm like, oh my god, this is iconic, and I'm like, I had to listen to it again, and then I remember listening to the first time, and I'm like, this song would be perfect in a Van Halen, in another Van Helsing movie. going down hunting Dracula in Transylvania. Plus, Dennis Stratton, one of the most underrated guitarists ever, probably his best work in the debut album. Very punky, even though Steve Harris doesn't like to use the word punk in the first Iron Maiden album, which I'm sorry, Steve, I love you, but that first Iron Maiden album is pure punk. It's so punky, even punk kids listening
I
to it,
mean,
and
I
they're
wish
like, they
still
dig
to
it.
this day, I wish still to this day that they would sing stuff from the Paul Di'Anno era, Iron Maiden, Charlotte the Harlot, Phantom of the Opera, Transylvania,
Wrathchild.
Wrathchild as well, Killers, uh,
Woman in
Prowlers as
uniform.
well. Exactly.
Yeah.
Steve, get over it. Even play Transylvania live. That would be a hell of a good time.
And by
But
the
then
way,
I-
Steve Harris, you can't deny that first album cover. It was very Punky Eddie with the spiky hair. He'll be like, "Oh,
Nope.
don't start."
But then again, who are we to question the greatness of Steve Harris? That's my number 8.
All right, well, start with Ricky for number 7.
Well, my number 7. I know we talked about this album all the time. It's from The Mantle, and I had to choose which instrumental I had to get. And I went with probably the one that kind of touched me the most personally, which is the Hawthorne Passage. Now, the reason it touched me the most personally is because at the very end of the song. At the end of the song, you have this Spanish lines, which I'm like, for all you know, I'm Mexican American. It's part of my culture. And whenever I hear a band put something in Spanish from a band that doesn't really know or is from that kind of area of Mexico or around my area, it kind of brings me of joy of like, oh, we're represented here. And then I'm like, man, that is very dark. For those who don't know Spanish, if you know what it says, it's very dark. And I'm like, I know I've heard this before, and then I remember it was from an old 60s movie, which I can't remember the name of. But besides from that, that whole instrumental, I mean, that's so. I mean, I don't want to say divine, because the whole mantra itself is a very divine album, but that whole instrumental is just, I can't describe it into words because it's the mantra, for God's sake. So that's my number 7, the Hawthorne Passage by Aguilar.
Hannah.
Well, my number 7 is also very depressive. It's Walker of Dissonant Worlds by Xastur. Depressive, suicidal black metal band from Los Angeles, I think. And this instrumental, it's like 6 minutes long or so, and it's the only albums Xastur ever released a music video for. And if you combine the instrumental and the music video, and it's so fucking depressing. I mean, the music starts out with this very dissonant guitar riff, and I mean, the riff just keeps on playing and keeps on playing. It's kind of monotonous, but still, because it's so dissonant, you want to continue listening to that one. And then suddenly, throughout the middle, this kind of second guitar kicks in, playing a very dissonant solo, and it's so dark. I mean, I get goosebumps, my hair stands on end. It just makes me feel very depressing. And then you have the music video. It's a self-shot music video of homeless people in LA carrying signs that state like, "You live for nothing," and very life-threatening statements on there, and you see people with shopping carts, people with gas masks walking around Los Angeles, shot in black and white, very distorted pictures. And those two medias together, the music and the music video, it's very, 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 very dark. I mean, if you haven't seen the music video and listened to the music, please check it out. You will feel something for sure. And this music, I mean, it touches you, not in a positive way, in a very negative way. But I can highly recommend it.
Send me the link. I can listen to it later.
I will do so.
Artur.
My number 7, it is in fact the first instrumental that I ever heard. Before I even knew who these guys were, this song eventually came into my life. Into the Lungs of Hell by Megadeth. I'm sorry, but I mean, Megadeth, they already did have some great instruments. I'm going to pull a Lance Archer and everybody dies on my next one. So here's the thing. But one of the first albums that I ever bought was Megadeth's second full length, So Far So Good So What. I did know at the time who Megadeth was, but I was punched, so to say, in my head with this explosion and all these trumpets starting to sound, and then the riffs starting to come up for Into the Lungs of Hell. And just like Erotic Nightmares and more technical difficulties, this song has a structure. It's not just Dave Mustaine and Jeff Young always wanksterbating on the guitars. It does have a structure, and especially some of those riffs, especially near the end, are simply amazing. So, Into the Lungs of Hell, my number 7.
Well, my number 7 was Spoiled by Ricky, Transylvania by Iron Maiden. I mean, what more can I say about it than what Ricky already said, and it just shows the old lineup of Murray, Harris, Stratton, Di'Anno, and Burr all going together, even though Di'Anno, no vocals, but everyone else, Steve Harris showing off why he's one of the best bassists in the history of not just metal, but music in general. So, that's all I could say for Transylvania. Now on to number 6. Now, I thought about if this one would count. I thought about if this song that I got here... Oh. Me. I thought about if this one should count since this was the final part of a 4-part song. But I decided, you know what? It was on the album that I got it off of. It counted as a single song, so I'll count it here. The final track off of the Masterpiece 2002 album In Their Darkened Shrines, Ruins by Nile. I mean, it's basically like a Death Doom closer because it's so slow, but it's so epic. Especially with like the ancient Egyptian styled like sounds in the background of the guitars. It is a wonderful way to close out what was such a masterpiece of tech death, prog death, whatever you may want to call it, brutal death. And I could have put a couple other Nile songs on here, like I could have put, what was another good one? I can't remember off the top of my head, but I went with Ruins because it was probably their most epic, and there you go. Hannah.
My number 6 is the only song of a solo guitarist I have on my... and it's the great Yngwie Malmsteen with Black Star.
Honorable mention. Honorable mention.
I mean, Yngwie, in my opinion, has achieved something other guitarists haven't, solo guitarists haven't achieved, and that is touching my heart. And Black Star is just so dark, so deep, so melodramatic. Especially the live version he played at.
And he also achieved another thing. He doesn't like donuts.
And this is becomes especially apparent on the live version he did at Budokan in Japan. It's 10 minutes long, so almost twice as long as the original one. Includes an extended intro of new classical guitar playing at his best, and then it suddenly gets heavy, and it's so dramatic, and what he doesn't stay, and I mean he perfectly manages to reproduce it on stage, which is an achievement in itself. He is a hell of a guitar player. Black Star is dark. It's dramatic. It's everything you wish for. It certainly doesn't need the vocals. One of Yngwie's finest musical hours. Fucking fantastic. Can highly recommend this piece of art.
Ricky.
Bass solo, take one.
Oh.
Yeah, my number 6, Avantasia pulling teeth from Kill 'Em All. Now, this was a very hard to put it very low on the list, but I had to put it on the list because, first of all, it's Cliff Burton. No one can touch Cliff Burton. Well, maybe Steve Harris. But Cliff Burton's probably one of my favorite basses next to Steve Harris. But this instrumental just they let
Not even Steve Harris is close enough to Cliff Burton.
they just let Cliff just go at it, just go crazy with it. And then you have the very end, you have Lars doing the drums. I mean, after this was a song after Jump in the Fire and before Whiplash, so it was kind of a transitional song, kind of getting more pumped up for the next half of the album. But it still did its job. I mean, call hell Cliff Burton.
Okay, Artur. What you got?
Oh no!
Let me
Please.
see. Battle Axes ready, shields ready, mead already in stock, safety locks, nuclear bunker. Everything's ready. I could have easily put this higher, but I can easily find 5 songs that are better, 5 instrumentals that are better than Metallica's Orion. As I said, I'm gonna do my Lance Artur. Everybody dies! It's Levi's number 1, I'm sure of it. Anna's number 5 and Ricky's number 1. 1, 2. Oh god damn it.
Oh my god.
Pulling my like I said, I'm pulling my best Lance Artur. Everybody dies. I mean, I've had. This was very tough because I could have put this one higher, but one of the musics that I have higher than Orion, Ricky already spoiled it, Transylvania. And the others, like I said, it's more out of my personal taste, but I have no question that Orion is a master. No question about it. Possibly one of the 3 best songs out of Master of Puppets. And if this is hailed as not only a masterpiece, but possibly Cliff Burton's greatest hour as a bassist, with 8 minutes and 27 seconds, more or less, I would say that Cliff Burton, Hetfield, Hammett, and all Lars, they all did their jobs perfect. Yes, I could have put this higher, possibly on my top 3, but I'm sorry, but Orion just only got number 6. And if I can make a little bit of a tie, I could easily put here Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth as well. But I'll just stay with my Murder Hawk song, Orion, by Metallica.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
I said everybody was going to die.
Start with you for number 5.
Well, my number 5 is also Orion. The thing is, I selected most of my songs on the basis whether they touched me or not, and Orion touched me to a certain degree, but there are 4 other songs that touched me more than Orion. Still, Orion is a fucking masterpiece. Cliff Burton at his best. Sadly, he wouldn't release anything after Master of Puppets, but still, Orion has stood the test of time. The bass solo is fucking fantastic, as is the instrumentation in general. Out of all the Metallica instrumentals, in my opinion, it's the best one. Although I really appreciate To Live Is To Die and The Call of Cthulhu and, of course, Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth. But still, Orion is the best, but sadly, there are other songs that touched my heart more, made me feel more intense, whatever, and that's why it's only on number 5. I'm sorry, Levi. I'm sorry, Ricky.
I'm more upset with Artur, not you. Okay.
I warned that everybody was going to die.
I might get my revenge later, possibly.
Anytime.
Artur, you're number 5.
Now that I've killed everybody, and this time I don't feel a bit sorry for it. The other times I did. Ricky is going to appreciate what my number 5 is. Probably the shortest instrumental that I have right here. Van Halen's Eruption.
Only reason I didn't put that on my list because it was under 3 minutes.
I don't care if it's under 3 minutes. To me, is possibly one of the greatest guitar solos that ever existed, especially when it comes to Van Halen creating a bit of a neoclassical genre where he goes to quote Beethoven. I mean, we can argue anytime who are the greatest guitar players of all, who are the greatest guitarists of all time. Usually the top 2 spots are usually set in stone by Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen. Order can be changed, I know, but when you have almost 2 minutes of Eddie Van Halen, even quoting classical masterpieces years before Wolf Hoffman would quote on Metal Heart, years before Yngwie Malmsteen would use that as his entire career. Here is Eddie Van Halen on the Los Angeles glam scene doing all of this stuff, and it's simply beautiful. Eruption is my number 5.
My number 5. Oh.
Meh.
My number 5. I spoiled this many episodes ago. I said if we ever did a top 10 instrumental song list, this would be on my list. And it is at number 5, Nowhere Fast by Razor. The opening track off of Evil Invaders, in my opinion, Razor's best album. The perfect balance of their speed metal style from their first album and what they would eventually become with the thrash metal vibe for the rest of their albums. And to kick off an album with a nearly 5-minute instrumental of just pure thrashiness certainly gets my vote, and this is probably the one song off of Evil Invaders I've listened to the most because it's such a catchy one and it's so unrelenting. So, my number 5, Nowhere Fast by Razor. Ricky.
Well, my número 5 is from, again, a bit personal again, because my number 5 is Santana's Europa, Earth's Cry, Heaven's Smile. Again, one of those Santana's regarded as one of the best guitarists in the world. Also comes from Guadalajara, Mexico. And I like the way that he used the psychedelics because it was in the 70s. It's a lot of psychedelics in the song. It almost makes me feel like I'm on acid, which is kind of weird. But it just, the way that the song flows, makes me chill. Like I'm in some clouds floating in heaven. To the point that I didn't even know this, but my mom even knows this song. I mean, she knows who Carlos Santana is, and I'm shocked she knows this song because my mom's not that much of a rock person. But this came out around I think she was probably like 10 years old. She must have known, and my uncles know about it. Which I'm like, damn, that's how much impact Santana has had on Mexican culture. Even people who aren't rockers or metalheads know Santana just by the name alone. And if Black Magic Woman was instrumental, it would have easily been my number 1. But it has words, so I had to limit that from the list. But I mean, this song is great. I mean, what you want from more Santana, you got it right there.
All right, Ricky, let's begin with you for number 4.
Well, Archer spoiled it. Van Halen Eruption. Everyone has tried to duplicate what Eddie Van Halen did in Eruption. No one has come close to the original. Neoclassical, fast finger, fast picking, and all that. I mean, Eddie Van Halen did it all before people like Michelangelo, people like maybe even moms and people like Levi. I know there's
Randy Rhoads.
There's more. Well, okay, well, yeah, before Randy Rhoads, yeah, as well. But this instrumental inspires so many people to pick up a guitar. I personally have played it. I cannot play it if it was for the life of me. It's on a whole different level. But again, I couldn't deny the greatness of Eruption, even though it's less than 3 minutes. I had to put it somehow.
And it still amazes to this day. And I've seen videos of the Van Halen reunion. Even to this day, Eddie Van Halen can't miss a note when he plays Eruption live, even at his late age.
All right. My number 4 has already been spoiled. It's Voice of the Soul by Def. I mean, I got a feeling of something, but I'm not going to say. But yeah, Voice of the Soul, I mean, it's probably one of the saddest songs I've ever heard, and there's no lyrics. It's just the way it was put together feels like it was a sad song. Chuck showcasing his ability on both electric and acoustic. And also it was one of the highlights of the final Death album we ever got. And just imagine also, because little backstory, some of the songs off of Sound of Perseverance were originally songs for Chuck's side project Control Denied before they end up changing it over for this album. And I think this was one of them. But regardless, Voice of the Soul is such a powerful, sad instrumental. And as I brought up earlier, if we ever get to do a top 10 saddest songs in metal, this would no doubt be up there for me. Artur?
Just say it, Levi.
It's your
Just
turn.
say it. Nah, just say it. You know what I'm going to say.
Is it Cosmic Sea?
Yes, it is Cosmic Sea. It was too obvious. I mean, I'm ashamed that I did not put here Voice of the Soul, but there's something about Cosmic. It's the whole progression, and especially when he goes to the middle, when it's the slow part, when he goes. Na, 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 na. I mean, it's so beautiful. I mean, I know that Chuck wanted always to lead the death metal genre that he in a way helped to create, even though he did not want the label of the Godfather of death metal. But
At least back then.
yes, but there's no question that Human. It is a very different album, kind of proggy in a way, and Cosmic Sea. It is definitely. I can even put a tie here with Voice of the Soul, but I personally prefer more Cosmic Sea than I prefer Voice of the Soul. No disrespect to that, but there's something about Cosmic Sea that just makes me want to listen more than Voice of the Soul, so to say.
Not to mention, that was the one song off of Human that was written while in the studio when recording. So that was, you can thank Sean Reinert for that. Alright, I believe I got Ricky's number 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I got Artur's, I got mine. So, Hannah, you're number 4.
My number 4 is not a death song. It's not a death metal song. It's a black metal song. Surprise, surprise. It's Soul Stafir's I Viking, out of their debut album. When Soul Stafir was still a black metal band. After that, they turned into this kind of prog rock.
Post metal in a way.
Yes, post metal project. I mean, it's still awesome, but for me, the true roots of the music are black metal, and on their debut album, in my opinion, the best song is I Viking. It's an instrumental, it's 9 minutes long. It contains some spoken word passages, but in Icelandic, so I simply ignored that for this list. For me, it's an instrumental. It starts out with this guitar riffs, very quiet, but there's this kind of suspense undertone throughout the intro, and then it picks up heaviness, it picks up speed, it just evolves into something battery-esque. It's into something epic, something like the background music of Viking battle. It's very epic, but still very touching, very emotional. And in my opinion, one of the best musical moments Soul Stafir have ever created. And there's this fan-made music video containing scenes of Valhalla Rising, and it just complements the music perfectly. I mean, if you haven't listened to I Viking, check out the fan-made music video on YouTube with the Valhalla Rising scenes. Just a perfect mixture of music and visuals. A fucking epic song. If you have 9 minutes, listen to it.
Alright, Hannah, let's begin with you for number 3.
Well, my number 3 is something different entirely. It's not black metal, it's epic doom metal. Ricky and I both love this song. We've talked about it before. It's The Way of Return by Spirit Adrift.
Honorable mention! Honorable
I knew
mention!
that you would say that.
Honorable mention!
I mean, a lot of us agreed that Divided by Darkness is a fucking epic album and one of the best that came out last year. And the perfect way to close this epic doom metal album is, without doubt, the instrumental The Way of Return. It starts out insuspiciously and then develops into a fully blasted Pink Floyd-like solo. It's so touching, it's so heartwarming the way the notes move and blend into each other. Feels so much like Pink Floyd, but Pink Floyd with a doom metal instrumental background. The songwriting on this song is just fucking fantastic. I can't get enough of this song. I mean, what more is there to say? It's epic, it's awesome, it's divine, it's like Pink Floyd
On steroids.
awesome. Yes. Like injected with lots of steroids, but so worth it. It's so awesome. I could ramble about it for hours on end. It's just awesome. Listen to it if you haven't. Bird Adrift, The Way of Return.
My number 3 has been spoiled by Artur. Into the Lungs of Hell by Megadeth, the opening track off of So Far So Good So What. Quite a ripper, to say the very least, for a beginning song on what is ultimately maybe Megadeth's most underrated, if not second most underrated album. I'd also say Euthanasia would be up there in that conversation, but this kicked off what was a damn good album, and just the soloing on here is just insanity personified. I could have went with Dialectic Chaos, but since I was shorter than this, I decided to leave it off. This was a longer track, and it was one of those that like I was really hooked on when I first was listening to thrash back in middle school time. This was a song that grabbed me. So, Into the Lungs of Hell, Megadeth at number 3. Artur.
In a way, my number 3 has also been spoiled by Ricky. It's Transylvania by Iron Maiden. I don't need to say much more about Transylvania except for one thing. Steve, Nico, Adrian, Yan. Am I forgetting someone? Nah.
David.
Dave. Yeah. Play this fucking song live. Screw Children of the Damned. Screw for the greater good of God. Put on some Transylvania live. The crowd will go crazy. I assure of it. And try also to play some more Paul Diano era songs, not just Iron Maiden.
I like Children of the Damned and For the Greater Good of God.
As I said, I can put 4 ballads before Children of the Damned that I would want to listen way before Children of.
I know.
Ricky?
Well, I've talked about Avantasia putting teeth to Big Brother. I've talked about To the Life of Death. I don't want to say Little Step. I want to say Little Step Brother. Now I'm talking about the second oldest, which is The Call of Cthulhu. Now, it was tough. I had to make the decision of either putting The Call of Cthulhu or Orion in that spot. Something about The Call of Cthulhu that starts with that tempo guitar and just picks up by I think that's the 2 minute mark, and just so epic. And then at the very end, the Lars just goes up, boom, 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 boom. And I wish I could play it. I don't know how. Yeah, I fucking speak. I don't know if they play that song in a while. I don't think they haven't. Imagine that and the imagine that song as the closing song. How epic it would be, like doom doom at the very end, the crowd going crazy. But that it's something. It's a masterpiece. The Call of Cthulhu is a masterpiece that like I said, I had to put it. It was tough between that and Orion. What more can I say?
And not to mention, one of the last songs Dave Mustaine helped co-write for Metallica. Oh boy, now we're into the top 2. Ricky, let's start with you.
Oh, Artur spoiled it. My number 2, Death by Cosmic Sea. Probably one of my favorite Death songs ever written by, not created by Chuck. Something more out there than Voices of the Soul, because, like Archer said, something about Cosmic Sea makes you want to listen to more than Voices of the Soul. I don't know what it is. Maybe the instrumentation, maybe the tempo, maybe the progressiveness of the song is what makes it more powerful. But it's one of Chuck's definest hours, next to probably like Voices of the Soul, or maybe Evil Dead, or Symbolic. It's just a great instrumental to listen to, that you have to listen to. I mean, you have to listen to the whole Human album in its entirety to get that feeling of Cosmic Sea.
Oh boy. Artur, you're number 2.
Laugh all you want for what I'm about to say, but if there's a band that has made a career out of performing instrumental throughout their entire career, is Apocalyptic. Just with cellos, they have managed to transform metal classics to works of beauty. I mean, Levi, they made a version of Inquisition Symphony, which is actually very good, and even Refuse Resist by Sepultura as well. They are very good in their craft. But my choice for here is Far Away, which to me, if we do the top 10 saddest songs of all time, this one is sad. Just because of the cellos, how they lead. It's so beautiful and yet so sad. To me, it's a bit of a comfort song. I listen to Far Away much as I can, especially in occasions when I am down as well. It is so beautiful and it's so touching. It is catchy sing. And I know that Apocalyptic have made other instrumentals and also songs with great artists such as Till Lindemann, Nina Hagen, Mats Levin, Corey Taylor as well. Sorry?
Villevalo.
Yes. And even Sammy from Erasmus.
And even Adam from 3 Days Grace.
Which that Don't Care song, the original version, is by Mats Levin from Therion and Candlemass. They made the video version with Adam, but the original version it's with Mats Levin. But still, it is Apocalyptica, it is Far Away, my number 2.
My number 2. I am shocked no one has had this on their list, or maybe yet. But how can we do a top 10 instrumental song without mentioning Rush? And the song I'm picking, La Villa Strangiato from Hemispheres. It is such a whacked out song, and this was probably the last of the truly prog era of Rush before they started to go more classic rock oriented, starting with Permanent Waves, the following album. But La Villa Strangiato, I mean, I could have went with YYZ, but I thought that would have been a bit too obvious, and I thought La Villa Strangiato was a bit more adventurous. And it's like 12 minutes long or what have you, so it's the longest instrumental I have on my list. And one of the best. I mean, Rush. Can't go wrong with Rush, really, at all. So, my number 2, La Villa Strangiato. Hannah.
Well, for my number 2, Ricky has already talked about Agalon. But before I reveal my song choice, I have to say that Agalog is known, rather well known for their utilization of instrumental songs on their album. There isn't an Agalog album without an instrumental. Some albums like The Mantle even feature multiple instrumentals, and they have one thing in common: they are so fucking good. Every single instrumental. And that's why I have a few honorable uh, Agalog instrumentals that I sadly did not choose. I mean, you have the Hawthorne Passage, you have Oda, you have the Lodge, you have Plateau of the Ages, and then Scars of the Shattered Sky, a 20-minute long instrumental from Ashes Against the Grain. But my personal favorite instrumental out of Agalog is the first Agalog song I ever listened to, and that's Pantheist, out of their phenomenal EP, The White. The White, for me, it's like The Mantle. It's holy music. It's something I worship deeply. And on The White itself, there are 3 out of the 7 songs are instrumentals. But Pantheist, in my opinion, is the best. It's like 6 or 7 minutes long. It's a very atmospheric track. It features so many layers of sound. It's such a deep song. And then throughout the song, you have this feeling that there is this kind of drum. It feels like a heartbeat. It's simply touching. And what caught my attention first about this phenomenal band, in my opinion, Pantheist is the best instrumental they have ever released. And it's the shining moment out of The White, which in itself is a fucking phenomenal EP. If you haven't heard of Pantheist or The White in general, check it out. It's so worth it. It's one of my most precious musical moments I ever discovered.
Alright, and now on to number 1. And Hannah, I'll let you start.
Well, from one precious magical moment to the next, I already talked about Pink Floyd on steroids. Now let's talk about Pink Floyd without steroids. Let's talk about Pink Floyd. When we first talked about the idea of putting together a top 10 instrumental list, this song was the first that came to mind. It's Maroon. Out of the phenomenal Division Bell. It's an improvised solo by David Gilmour, recorded on the Astoria boat during the Division Bell session. There is something about David Gilmour's guitar playing that is simply divine. It touches my heart, especially on this instrumental where his guitar playing is not covered by lyrics. There's something about it. I had it on in my car yesterday. Whenever I listen to it, I have to put the volume on full and just feel the music, experience the music. This instrumental, I don't know. I'm lost for words. It's so touching, and one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs. It's a shame they never played it live. I think they only played it live 3 times, but never on their tours, because it would be the shining moment of one of many shining moments of any Pink Floyd shows. I love it to death. I don't know what to say, but I'm simply lost for words because I love it so much.
Artur?
Honorable mention. Forgot about that one.
I said I would find 5 other instrumentals that I love more than Orion. And it all ends with a certain poster that Hannah has over there on her back. From the album Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk, Emperor's The Wanderer. I mean, that's one of the few songs that I would genuinely put just like the others, I would put over Orion. Atmospheric, dark, haunting to a certain extent. Even though it's a bit the riff, the same riff all the time, and it's mostly 3 minutes. I mean, it's so haunting, so beautifully dark and atmospheric that while Orion it is a triumphant masterpiece, a triumphant. Emperor's the Wanderer is a dark, melodic master, and that's why I
This is my new
What's wrong
face.
with Levi? What?
This is my new face.
Why?
I don't know.
Try to get a Triple H face. Try to get a Triple H face.
You need a water bottle to accompany the face.
And Motorhead as well.
And Stephanie.
Ooh, not her. But still.
I wouldn't mind banging Stephanie.
Going back to what I was saying. I'm sorry to any Metallica fans out there. Don't hate the other songs. Listen to them. They're as beautiful as well as Orion. But the best instrumental that I've ever heard and still listen to this day is Emperor's the Wall. Very underrated song by
Well, Ricky, time for you and I to talk about Orion now. Ricky, I'll let you start.
Jesus fucking Christ. Orion. That's it. No, I'm joking. Something about Orion that captivated me the most was that it seems like a simple instrumental, but when playing it on guitar, me as a guitarist, it is quite a challenge to play it because you have so many tempos, you have so much stuff that in the record you listen to it and you think you got it, but you don't. And besides, Cliff Burton's bass. I mean, talk about the shining of Orion. Cliff Burton's finest hour to date. I mean, sure you have some one or two words thrown out there of James Hetfield yelling "girl," which is kind of weird when he does that in that song. But still, I find it weird when Robert Trujillo plays it live, even though he tries his best to pay respects to Cliff Burton. But no one plays Orion like Cliff Burton did. So beautiful. And when we decided to do this list, that was the first song I thought of Orion. All hail Master of Puppets. All hail Cliff Burton.
And what more do I need to say? I mean, whenever you hear not just the solos, but even the riffs are quite catchy. There's some catchy riffs on this song, and then especially when after the first half of the song stops and you get that little boom, 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 boom. That was such a hypnotic transition into the slower section of the song before it goes back to being really fast to end the song off. And plus, even when my brother and I played it on Guitar Hero Metallica, it was quite fun to play it, and it was so cool. So, I don't really have anything else to add other than the fact that rest in peace, Cliff. I mean, this was his defining song, apart from the beginning of For Whom the Bell Tolls and Anastasia Pulling Teeth. When it came to showing how he could make his bass sound quite prominent, this was the song. To start off with that kind of like almost like an alien spaceship getting ready to land on Earth kind of sound at the beginning before it just gets into the actual music. And then that mellow transition, it was just perfect. It was just a perfect song. Well, that does it for this episode, Top 10 Instrumentals. We got a bunch more coming up soon. In fact, the next episode is gonna be a difficult one for me to make, and that's gonna be top 10 debut albums of all time.
It's album covers. It's
album covers. No. Album covers. Now, here's gonna be the difficult part. Whenever we mention the albums...
Iron Maiden.
Now, that episode for me is going to be quite difficult to edit, because I feel like I'm going to have to, for each of our entries, I'm going to have to display the cover on the screen so people will see it.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's going to be a challenge, but it's going to be fun. So, next episode, top 10 album covers. I know we're doing debut albums at some point, and that's why I remembered, but yeah, so that's the next episode. When that will come out, not sure, but we'll see. Anyways, thank you guys who were watching the premiere stream or the archive. We will see you next time. I don't want to do this, but I have no other option.
No! Please! Is it what
I feel like I'm about to commit the biggest genocide of all time on this show.
Wait,
My number 7. My number 7. Behemoth the Satanist.
No! 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 No!
Are you serious?
And now Hannah's going to hide in the shadows.
Damn you!
Everybody.
Why? Why?
You have to do it. You have to do it.